How's it going? All right, so I did a video recently about God, I need like freaking chopstick or something. What's it called? Ulster Scots history, and I did an attempted Ulster Scots accent, such as it was. So anyway, I'm gonna follow it up with a video about Scottish history, and maybe I'll try to do it with a bit of a Scots accent if I can. So, Scots history, Scots, yeah, I guess history. Everything's history, right? I can't tell you about I can't tell you about Scots future necessarily, or Scots present, other than myself. I'm part Scots, like Ulster Scot and regular Scot, and so like Scotland is a place that for the average person, like, what do they think of Scotland? It's a beautiful place. It has great scenery and highlands, lowlands, you know, unparalleled vistas, and has men wearing wee skirts or what have you, like kilts, and wearing plaid and eating haggis, and that's pretty much what people know. I mean, a lot of people, like, they have an idea that the Scots are Braveheart rebels and that, like, against the English, but they tend to get it conflated because, um, you know, they often conflate like genuine, Scottish radicals um, like Braveheart, William Wallace. They confuse him with you know, the Jacobites, the Bonnie Prince Charlie, some little French guy that had like point whatever percent Scottish ancestry, came up to Scotland, threw on a kilt or something, and all these corrupt landlords sent their tenants to die for him, and people celebrate it. They think he was the fucking hero. You know, I mean, I'm not saying like the Hanoverians were like perfect. Of course they're not. They weren't perfect, like corrupt as well. But I don't know if they were as corrupt as the Stuarts, like the Jacobites. They were scum. Like that's um yeah. Like our constitutional rights were largely developed just as a self-defense mechanism against um the Stuart family. But yet, like there's some show called Outlander or some shit, and some shite, they're like trying to spread the old Jacobite, the old Jacobite lies, and shite, fuck the Jacobites, fuck the bootlicking fucking royals. Like, I mean, maybe some had like some kind of good reason for it, but anybody who tells you that the Jacobites, Bonnie Prince Charlie, the McDonald's and the yada yada and the Culloden's more and whatever, anybody who tells you that they were, or was that Culloden's more? Shit, I don't know. Anyway, whatever was like the battle, great battle of like 1745, Jacobite uprising, and just in general, like people lionize them as that they were Scottish patriots, Celtic, heroes fighting against England, English encroachment. Fucking stupid, fucking stupid. Literally fighting for an English king. Most of the Jacobites were English in England. rich cunts. Rich cunts were most of the Jacobites, and they forced some poor tenant farmers and the Highlands and some crofters and their landlords forced them to fight for this defunct monarchy, and so that's shite. That's nothing to do with Scotland. That's a British, I mean, it's an English, I don't know, or globalist psyop, really. The Stuarts, they were loyal to no country or people. They were loyal to power, and just like their relative George III, the Hanoverians. Um, so Scotland, I'm going to tell you the truth about Scotland. It's not this simple wee land of just the sheep and the men with the skirts and the like plaid and the haggis. A lot of that like is artificial, you know. The whole modern system of plaid is artificial. Tartan. It's made up by some Polacks, true story, to just for to sell fabric, made a fortune, and the British monarchy supported it because um, I don't know, bullshit is helpful for those in power. It's the opiate of the masses, so it is. So um, anyway, but the real story of the Scots, like I would say, what's relevant about Scotland? What's relevant about Scots? Um, I mean, Scots brought Christianity to the English. We taught Christianity to the English. We had, you know, Ireland itself. It was called Scotland, and Scotland was called Scotia Minor because it was seen as like a colony or like an offshoot of Ireland. Um, and that was where my family was from, like the Campbells or my mom's ancestors, the Campbells in Argyllshire in sort of western northwest Scotland, current Scotland. That was the original, Scotland. It was not the whole, then it merged with the Pictland in which was up in the northeast, and with Strathclyde in the southwest, and which was might have been like a British, kind of a Welsh speaking community, and so um, so that's a big legacy. We Christianized the English. We had our center of Christianity was in Iona, uh, it's an island of Argyllshire between Argyll and Scotland, or Argyll and Ulster, Ireland, and so it was monks from there that went out to, I believe, Lindisfarne, and I believe it's Lindisfarne in northern England, where the Anglo-Saxons were, and started, Christianizing, missioning to them or whatever, and established another renowned center of Christian worship and study and etc. there. Both centers were eventually sacked and destroyed by the Vikings, apparently. Um, but the Scots and the Irish had a huge role, especially through Iona and Lindisfarne, in actually Christianizing continental Europe after the fall of Rome. So it may be that, like, without the Celts, don't know if that's good or bad, like, but yeah, like without the Celts, maybe, or without those the Gaels, like there might not have been a Holy Roman or yeah, there might not have been the rise of the revival of Christianity in the continent of Europe, um, or in England, might have stayed pagan. Don't know if that would have been good, better or worse. Like, might have been better, but I mean, the Celtic Christianity was relatively, you know, benign. Um, they even changed parts of the Bible. I think, like in the Celtic Bible, they translated where Jesus says, like, "I came not to bring peace, but to bring a sword." And the like the Book of Kells, or like whatever it is, like some kind of one of the early Celtic Bibles, um, they just translated it as "I came not to bring peace, but to bring love," or something. So yeah, I don't know. I guess they made it their own little thing. They had their own Easter celebration that was at variance with Rome for a long time, and it was a source of great conflict. So, in a sense, they were Protestants, like from day one. Um, they certainly didn't have a lot of respect for like the authority of the Bishop of Rome, for the Pope. Um, like Columbanus, I think it was Columcille who established Iona in Argyll, and I think it was Columbanus who went out from Iona to continental Europe, and you know was a missionary, established a great number of religious centers in I believe Germany and maybe other countries in the continent. Um, but he wrote letters to the Pope, like just telling him off, totally excoriating him, and totally ridiculing the idea that the Bishop of Rome has some special power over any other bishop or presbyter or man of God. And so, all right, so that's some early stuff, um, like the Scots. What else? Like we invented the left, liberalism. You could say that started in Western Scotland, in as it was called the Argathelian Wiggery. Like they were called the Whigamores, and they rose up against the British Crown for freedom, and for the Presbyterian Church, the Kirk, as they call it. Kirk is like Scottish for church, probably closer to the word for church in most languages, actually, like most related European tongues. But um, so they rose up, they overthrew Charles the First, and they established, like, they were the Whigamores, the Whigs, and then but the people that had the same views in England, they were called the Whigs, based on, because it was the Scots who started the revolution in 1638 or whatnot. Um, so they really launched the movement, and so those who supported freedom in England, they were called Whigs as well, and they were associated with us. And we joined together with them. They were the parliamentarians. They believed in you know they were, I mean, part of it was against taxation. Like a lot of right wingers today, I don't know if they would know like where to come down on in these issues. A lot of them call themselves conservatives, but I'm not sure if they're really willing to lick the royal boot like a real conservative is supposed to do, at least if we're talking real actual conservatism, not this whatever somebody pulls out of their ass in Texas and calls it conservatism, but like the actual historical movement of conservatism. Um, I mean, in terms of just conserving things, there's almost nobody who conserves anything nowadays, so that's a moot point. Like, but Like, what else was I gonna say? Um, just to talk about fuck, how do they say that? Talk about um like, I mean, there's something. The Scots went in very large numbers to Canada, and in the Hudson's Bay Company and the Northwest Trading Company, and they essentially they founded uh, British Canada. Um, don't know again if that's good or bad, like, but that's the fact. And the Canadian accent is largely Scottish accent, with a bit of probably Ulster Scots and maybe Irish accent as well in it. But and other, and obviously the US accent, and maybe a bit of the probably some of the English accent, but the Scots accent, is might be paramount. Just, I mean, just to the fact that they say about, and they're renowned for that. They say, what are you talking about, or whatever. Like, that's 100% Scottish. So, like, even the Ulster Scots are not quite that Scottish in their dialect, I think, or they're certainly no less or no more so. So, see, here's my cat is like trying to escape from all this noise coming out of my mouth. Anyway, so people think like the Scots, who are they? Shrek. Wait, is Shrek a Scot? Didn't he have a Scottish accent? Don't know why. Yeah, I think he had a Scottish accent. Or am I thinking of? Yeah, I think Shrek was some. So we got Shrek, we got the ogres, we got Brave, like some movie called Brave. A lot of films about Scots, um, but very very few like have even a fucking clue the truth of Scottish history, or just like, or they just know like wee bits, not much. The Scots, uh, hugely influential, the most influential people probably in history, other than, you know, I don't know. It's hard to think of anyone that influential. Uh, Not all for the best. I mean, some for the best, some for the worst, and some uh, indeterminate. But like, um, they largely built the modern world, or they determined its structure. Um, there's a book about I think Arthur Herman, I think is his name, and says his name, yeah, and it's called how how the Scots invented the modern world, how Western Europe's poorest nation created our world and everything in it. And so, it's like, obviously there's some hyperbole there, like everything in it, right? But you would be surprised like how much it's not hyperbole. Um, like, just to talk about people that, because it blew my mind when I got old enough to study it, and because I was the same. I thought Scots, brave, rebels and simple, Highlanders, and haggis and that whiskey and something something Braveheart. That's all I knew, and I didn't think there was much more to it. Like, I just assumed, like, we were a bit peripheral, like we kept down by the kept down by the English, so we just tried to you know try to get by, keep our head down, and maybe rebel now and then, was right about the rebellion. They rebelled like, you know, nearly constantly throughout history, you know. Like there's a book called De Jure Regni Apud Scotus, and it tells the history, like in Latin, of course, of Scottish rebellion going back like um to the beginning. Basically says like that's the Scottish way. If you fuck with us, like if the government fucks with us, if the government is worthless, if it's not up to the task, if it's tyrannical, any of these things, just replace it, you know, one way or another, hook or by crook. That's the Scottish way, like that's our tradition. And so that's what that became the American tradition, like through people who are Scottish trained, like Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, like you know, Jefferson was had a Scottish. Most of the founders, like if they were English, they had like Scottish tutors. You know, Most tutors were Scottish, just because we are the renowned kind of intellectuals, and so yeah, like I think his tutor was named William Smalls, either William Small or William Smalls, and I think he attended Glasgow or Edinburgh University, basically a product of the Scottish Enlightenment. So that's a whole thing, and that, you know, the US, the United States, as a product of the Scottish Enlightenment, which was which basically peaked during that time, like during 1776. Um, so you know, talking David Hume, Adam Smith, um, and then a whole roster of like other people that are mostly forgotten to history, but were hugely influential at the time. Like especially what's the name? Francis Hutcheson. I mean, he was an Ulster Scot, but yeah, and he most of his career was in Scotland. You know, he was of Scottish ancestry and I think a bit English Puritan ancestry as well, perhaps. But you know, Scottish Presbyterian minister, son of the manse, and chair of moral philosophy at Glasgow University, really launched the Scottish Enlightenment single handedly. I mean, you could say he and Lord Kames. Lord Kames had a role in it uh, too, because especially in devising the kind of overly formulaic four-stage theory of social human progress that came to dominate many aspects of the Scottish Enlightenment, uh, probably to our detriment. Um, Nevertheless, um, he was the his most renowned pupil, perhaps, was renowned. That's I'm doing like an Ulster accent, kind of, but I'm not sure exactly. Renowned, renowned. It's close to like for Scottish. I know it's close to that anyway. Um, Relatively close. Uh, but they how am I talking about? The like I'll just give a list at least, you know, before it cuts me off. Give a list of like the famous Scots that you might know, like through history and in modern times, perhaps. Like let's see, James Watt, right? He invented the steam engine. He created modern civilization, you know, through the industrial revolution. Um, so that's like modern technology. Started there in Glasgow in 1776, I believe, or 1775. I think it was actually Franklin who helped introduce yeah, I think he introduced James Watt to uh, Bolton or yeah, I think maybe Samuel Bolton or whoever he partnered with to actually develop it into the modern technology basically. But he was at Glasgow University. He was mechanic or tinkerer kind of fix it guy, and he just took the steam engine that already existed and made it into something capable of, modern industry basically. Um, so, Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin in Scotland. Let's see, Sanford Fleming was a Scottish Canadian, I believe, who established the time zones that we have currently, like the prime meridian, and I think, or the whole like time system. And so, of course, probably his fault that it's like Greenwich Mean Time, like the English English hegemony in that, but or British, like I don't know. Anyway, Scots are British. That's something a lot of people are confused about. We Scots are not anti-British. Like we're literally occupy the northern half of, or northern third at least, of the island of Britain. So it was called Britain before the English even arrived. Actually, the true Britons, if anything, are the Welsh. But really, anybody in the British on the British island is British. Um, so who else? Let's see. Um, Scotsman. I mean, the first three central banks in history were created by Scotsmen. Um, so like modern economics is largely a Scottish development. It started in Edinburgh with the large banking houses, and I mean largely influenced by the Swiss, by the Dutch, because that was where the Presbyterian sympathies and relationships were as being Reformed Protestants. But we took it to that, or some of us like took it to that level. It was William Paterson established the Bank of England in 16 I think about 1700 around, and established the Bank of Scotland, which was, I guess, the second central bank, and of a modern sort. And then it was a Scotsman named John Law who established the first central bank of France. It was the Scotsman Alexander Hamilton established the first central bank of the United States, which the Federal Reserve is basically that, just basically another the devil. You can't kill the beast; it just comes back. Like, so, yeah. I mean, the Scots like hugely influential in very good and very bad ways. Like, honestly, um, it's just what it is. And but HSBC established by Scottish opium smugglers in Hong Kong. They were Jardine Matheson, the opium smugglers who basically were the engine of the British Empire. British Empire relied on, um, and a lot of inventions, in science, technology, not just Dolly the sheep, but like going back, like the Stevensons who invented like railways, that they were Scottish ancestry. Um, John Logie Baird, um, Kirkpatrick Macmillan developed the bicycle, or at least one version of the bicycle. John Logie Baird developed at least a version of television, I guess the British type of evolution of television. Um, you can go down the list of Scottish inventions. It's endless. But don't know. I might do a follow up about some more of this later, but I think my phone's cutting me off. So I know I haven't done like the best Scottish accent, and I don't know if I've even been rolling my R's in the right way, like, but you know, did what I could, gave it a little try there. All right, fair fa you, or take care, and